All right, hello everyone. It's Dan Miller, EDU 730 for week 8 final project, talking about high reliability status and the redesign of Kearney School District with the real world learning initiative. So this topic is something that I've really ran with for this class, something that is still in the beginning stages of implementation for my district and a number of districts throughout the Kansas City area. So just wanted to expand on that a little bit and really focus on the redesign of public education with this innovative idea as we know it. So a little bit about the Kearney School District where I work, a suburban public school district located roughly 30 miles north of Kansas City on Interstate 35. It's in Clay County. We serve over 3,600 students pre-K through 12th grade. This district is comprised of a total of 8 buildings: early childhood center, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 junior high, and 1 high school. Serving underneath KSD's superintendent of schools and his cabinet are 2 superintendents as well as a handful of directors, which I will get into here momentarily. So I'll kind of talk about real world learning here a little bit as that pertains to college and career readiness, but it's quite fitting that our mission in the Kearney School District is pursuing excellence today for tomorrow. You know, as educators in the field of education, whether you're a teacher, administrator, central office personnel, whatever the case may be, we have to prepare students for their post-secondary careers, whether that's college, career, higher school, military, whatever the case may be. And so I feel like this really truly aligns with that. And so though it's early, we'll working the kinks out as we get through this. But again, mission pursuing excellence today for tomorrow. So a little bit more on the description of KSD as far as governance. Much like any other public school, there's a city elected board of education comprised of 7 members. Our superintendent of schools is Dr. Todd White. Central office personnel, we have 2 assistant superintendents and multiple director positions, to assist. Building level principals as well, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 junior high, and 1 high school, with several assistant principals sprinkled in as well. So just some demographics here. Earlier I said 3,600 students, so kind of rounded up there a little bit, but specifically 3,514. We are roughly 93% Caucasian, 52% male, 48% female, 14.4% free and reduced lunch, just under 10% of students qualifying for SPED services, 1.2% categorized as homeless, just under 5% categorized as gifted. You can see the figures there for military and foster families as well, and a very, very small amount of ELL. But I will say that, though these numbers are small and representative of subgroups within our population, that those numbers have continued to grow steadily over the last year or two. You look at schools and grade level configurations, our elementary enrollment is 1,548 students. You can see the names of the elementary schools listed there, in addition to our LENS program, Learning and Exploring Through Nature and Science, which is our place-based school. We also have a middle school, that's a 6-7 building, student enrollment at 550. Junior high is an 8-9 building at 542. And then we are a 10-12 high school, which is where I serve as an assistant principal. Total enrollment 874 students. So as mentioned earlier, Dr. Todd White is our superintendent. 2 assistant superintendents are Mr. Jeff Morrison and Miss Jennifer Kopp. Their titles there respectively, one human resources and student services, and the other academic services and family resources. We also have a director of special education, Dr. Heather Gilkey, great gal, used to teach with her in the building, former SPED teacher. And then we have multiple director positions throughout the district, everything from communications to early childhood center and everything in between. Kind of outlined that a little bit more in my paper, but wanted to give the condensed version here in this presentation. So, and again, elaborated on this a little bit more in the paper as well. And we could make an argument for all kinds of different leadership styles that would align with an innovative sort of mindset, regardless of what the initiative is at the district or building level. But I really decided that my primary focus would be on these three listed here: organization, ambition, and then the establishment of a vision. I think I'd mentioned before in a paper that, we know where we are right now, but it's also important to know where we want to be. And sometimes you have to take that jump. And with that, you have to have some sort of a vision for 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as we continue to expand as educators in this field. So really, I just kind of wanted to narrow an area of focus or areas of focus. So this is what I decided to focus on. Obviously, real world learning, college and career readiness. If you've ever heard of the phrase portrait of a graduate, that seems to be a buzz phrase in a lot of districts now, because the question arises, well, what is the portrait of a graduate? What do we want kids to be able to do skill wise when they leave us and go out into the real world? So obviously credits don't change, the earning of high school credits and checking those boxes in your core areas. But what my district has done, in addition to other districts, is the language has changed a little bit into market value assets, where that will accompany high school credits. And so part of that too is a curriculum overhaul, in social studies, English, math, you name it. We've really got to look at those classes from a standards approach and figure out how we're going to make drastic improvement across the board, especially when you consider competency-based education. So in looking at Marzano and the 5 levels of high reliability schools with collaborative culture, real world learning in this new initiative is not possible without the building of relationships with students and staff, and also providing our stakeholders opportunities to provide input, whether that's informally in meetings, coffee chats was an example that I used, but then eventually there needs to be some sort of formalized task force, which we have right now. With effective education, or effective instruction, in every classroom, there has to be that curricular shift. And that's not just a high school thing. I know that with credits and putting them out with internships and client-based projects, like that's the easy way to think about it. But we also have to figure out early intervention with our elementary school kids with things like Project Lead the Way, and just classes where we're going to hook them early and engage that interest. One thing that we have is a place-based school, the LENS program, which I mentioned earlier. All those would align with early intervention. Third, a guaranteed and viable curriculum. What I expanded on within my paper was time is very valuable. Teachers are underpaid. We know that. Most educators in general are underpaid, but as long as we can provide time to everybody, change takes a significant amount of time. These things don't happen overnight. So if we can embed collaboration with that as well and tie that to our vision, I feel like the guaranteed and viable curriculum aspect of that is going to be ultimately a success. With standards reference reporting, I mentioned MVAs, market value assets, earlier, and the tracking system that comes along with that. One other piece is that there's an updated and improved diploma for future classes. I believe right now it's our upcoming 8th grade class, which would be the class of 2026, 5, something like that. I'm not quite sure, but several classes away for that. Lastly, competency-based education. This is a progressive methodology to where students can work at their own pace, to where we're not holding them back, so to speak, to where students are responsible for their own learning and eventually could result in individualized education plans, not from a SPED realm, but just from a pure advancement realm. So I won't read through this entire piece with you. This is something that I just decided to cut and paste from my paper itself. But when you look at real world learning and who's heading that up, we have a career readiness coordinator. myself right now as an assistant principal, I've immersed myself in it simply because, you know, things could change in several years, and I want to make sure that I'm familiar with this, and that I'm certainly an advocate for this. There's a great network that exists right now, especially with the Kansas City area, with everybody getting on this. I say bandwagon. I know that has a negative connotation, but this is something that is um, gaining ground and getting very, very strong. And I think we're heading in the right direction for our kids. So appreciate it. Thank you. It's been a good class. I appreciate everyone's input and feedback on everything. Good luck with y'all throughout the duration of the program.